I wanted to transition to my next story, and this one comes from Business Insider Prime. This one is about cross-platform integration when it comes to YouTube, social media, and running a podcast. Now, granted, I am new at both social media, YouTube, and running a podcast. So what I've been trying to do is take a look at what successful people are doing in the industry to make a good living. Last week, I touched on a story from, again, Business Insider, which talked about how a couple of podcasters, which had only been running their podcast for a year, December 2018, had been able to increase their income from $2,000 a month to $25,000 a month using a couple of really intelligent strategies in order to increase their income. So I'll put a link to that last video in this one. So the important thing about being on both platforms is it's probably the best thing to do in order to increase the amount of income that you have or that you're bringing in. If you look at somebody who's already doing that, you can take a look at Joe Rogan, Bill Burr. Both of those guys have been doing this for years. And what they'll do is especially with Bill Burr just does strictly audio, and yet he'll take his clips and chop them up into pretty much small pieces that people can really take on, and it doesn't feel overwhelming. Andrew Schultz is a comedian who's actually done the same thing. He has taken clips of his shows, his long stand-up comedy specials, and he's broken them down into tiny 5 to 10 minute clips, even shorter than that. And what that does is you're getting the highlights of the show. And because people have such a short attention span on YouTube specifically, people are kind of browsing. When you have those short clips, the nice thing is when it's enough that it keeps them excited and wanting to go to the next thing. So with Schultz, he's become one of the most viewed comics on YouTube because he gives such small edible pieces of content that people are excited. And that's how I got introduced to him. And he goes on to the next one. And his videos continue to get recommended, and I keep watching those because it's so easy. And by the time you look up, it's been an hour or 2 hours that you've been watching of his comedy. So YouTube is a brilliant way to increase your income, especially if you're using a podcast. Now, in this story here, there were some YouTube stars named Zain Hijazi and Heath Hussar who were already big on YouTube, but they weren't seeing the income that they wanted. Zain had about 4 million subscribers and Heath had 2 million subscribers. So when they came together to start a podcast, they were able to get a lot of that traffic that was on YouTube and bring that over to their podcast. So at this point, they currently have about 480,000 subscribers to their podcast. But what that's done is that's allowed them, when they first started and having, no real amount of content behind their podcast, they've been able to sell $590,000 in podcast ads in only 3 months. So to make that kind of money in only 3 short months is absolutely incredible. I mean, that's kind of the dream come true to be able to do that. So a little bit about these guys. Zain and Hussar, they got their start on Vine. So they were making the 6-second video clips. And over time, they started to realize that YouTube was the platform that people are going to be at. And it really is the only game in town. Not only is YouTube insanely popular, it's actually the second biggest search engine in the world behind Google. Obviously, Alphabet owns Google, owns YouTube. That's a parent company. But if you are trying to run a business, if you're trying to get started, it only makes sense to create content for YouTube in order to drive traffic to your site and to your business, therefore increasing more recognition and more revenue long time for your business. These guys started a YouTube channel just talking about their lives. It's called Zain and Heath Unfiltered, and it started in September. And it's generated almost $600,000 in podcast ad revenue in the first 3 months. So looking at that is honestly a dream come true. Some people don't make that kind of money in, years of working a full 40-hour a week job every single day. Struggling parents, people that just don't know what to do. So podcasting is honestly, it's kind of the reason why I got my start here, because I love business. I want to talk about specifically business and generating more income by researching those people who are already doing it. So that's why I wanted to take a look at this one. And this story really stood out to me because of the way that they were struggling with YouTube, but decided that why don't we start a podcast and bring a lot of our audience over? And it's kind of helped both ways. It's helped their YouTube and it's helped with their podcast. Now, the thing about their podcast is, like I said, it builds a very intimate relationship with the audience. And because of that, these two podcasters tend to only advertise for products that they use. Thereby, it tends to give a lot more credibility to the products that they advertise. And when they're doing a sponsor and talking about a sponsor, it feels real. It feels like it's actually used. Unlike a lot of the TV shows that we watch where advertisements come up, or radio, and they just do a read-in about whatever product they're advertising, and it sounds so forced and it sounds so fake. So most of the time, people aren't sold and aren't going to go buy that product. And that's why podcasting seems to be so important and so smart of a business to get into with whatever business you plan on doing. Even if podcasting is not your full-time income or your full-time business, using that cross promotion between that and YouTube in order to drive the traffic to whatever your business is, whatever service you have, it seems like that's the way to go. So there is a lot more. So these guys, they have it's called Unfiltered is the name of their podcast. And it says in the first quarter, sponsors like HelloFresh, Dollar Shave Club, and host read ads also appeared in the YouTube videos. So the cool thing about that is they're basically able to double dip when it comes to talking to their sponsors. They can say, hey, we are going to be sponsoring you guys on our podcast and on YouTube. So you're getting two for the price of one. Thereby, it allows them the ability to increase how much they're charging their sponsors for this.